Hello and welcome to Sound Off Sports. I'm your host, Mike Davis. We got a great show for you today. We're talking all about Caitlin Clark being left off that Olympic roster. Should she be on it? We hear your thoughts. Plus, the Celtics have now captured their 18th championship. Is this the beginning of a brand new dynasty? We hear your thoughts on that as well. Plus, a little later on in the show, former NBA veteran CJ Watson. He joins us to talk all things basketball. SOS starts right now.
Make some noise. This is Sound Off Sports.
Hello and welcome to Sound Off Sports. Great to be with you. I'm Mike Davis, joined by my producer and my main man, James Edward Berkman IV. Great to see you. Listen, guys, a lot to talk about on this week's show. We got so much interest on our Facebook post regarding Caitlin Clark being left off the USA Olympic roster. We got to dive right into that. We got some voicemails, James. Let's start with the first one.
I think leaving Caitlin Clark off the USA women's basketball team is a strategic move because she's a good player right now, but I don't think they want her to go out there and suck. So I think it's just purely a business move, and just to wait till she's a little bit better because she's still kind of scrawny right now. She's getting the weight room, and they just want to make sure she's perfect when she gets out there. And it would just look bad for the USA team for her to go out there and suck, and then she's one of the highest paid women's athletes. You know, she just got that $28 million deal from Nike, and for her to bomb out there would just look really bad for a women's team. So I think they're just overprotective right now, and they just want to protect her. She kind of reminds me of like Trae Young on the, where she's on like a bad team, and it's really hard to gauge how good she really is. But I think next time around, she's definitely on the team. So I think it's a good move, leaving her off. I don't think people should freak out. They're just trying to, make her look as good as possible in front of the USA.
Okay, I mean, listen, it's an interesting take. I definitely don't think that's the issue, but I appreciate the thoughtfulness on that. James, where do you stand on all this?
I think that the USA women's team made a mistake. This is bigger than whether or not she actually belongs on the roster. That's not the point. The point is she's at least close. And when you have a star in Caitlin Clark, who is the biggest star your sport has ever seen and is arguably the most popular athlete in all of America right now, and you have a chance to showcase her talents to an international audience, when you're a sport that's trying to grow your game and make these women in the WNBA money, you take that opportunity. And so this isn't really about whether or not she's actually one of the 12 best players. There's an argument to be made for and against it, but the point is she's close. But it's really about harnessing the momentum that Caitlin Clark has given your sport so that you can leverage that to eventually get these women paid and get eyeballs on televisions and get them, making wages that they deserve.
That might be the most eloquent thing James Edward Berkman has ever said.
I clap myself up
on Sound Off Sports. Congratulations. I have nothing else to say. That was beautiful. Next voicemail.
I love Caitlin Clark. I think she's probably maybe the best female college basketball player, hooper ever. But we're going to the Olympics, and we need to have the veterans for this one. We need to bring home the gold. That's the bottom line. And there'll be a lot of other Olympics that Caitlin Clark will shine.
All right, so I actually have a response for this. I mean, fascinating thing here is we all remember the 1992 Dream Team, that really captured the imaginations of the public. I mean, it's known that these teams, they always have usually a collegiate player that hasn't even had a professional minute of play. So that's an amateur thing. It's usually that is baked into the roster construction for these Olympic teams. So Christian Laettner hit that big shot at Duke. He was on that roster with Malone, Stockton, Magic, Michael, Bird, all these legends, but they still made room for Christian Laettner. So to me, the thing here is yes, it is harder to make the WNBA roster in the Olympics because all the great players are American. Where in the NBA, you got Giannis, you got Jokic, you got Embiid, you got all these guys who might not even be, they would be playing for their respective countries. Still, you got to think what you said, James. She's top 12, 15 in the league, I would say. And just to harness, like you said, to harness all that positive momentum, it's appalling. It's actually insane that she's not on this roster.
They're just missing the point.
They're missing the point of the whole thing. And she doesn't have much heavy lifting to do. No. Like to our first caller, it's not like she's going to be, stick out like a sore thumb or anything. She's going to be fine. She's going to be
suck. No, that
surrounded by that talent. She's actually going to bring a lot to the team. Even just from a shooting standpoint, she'd be a great player to have. So it's fascinating that many. I'm shocked that this many people do not feel like it's a given that she should have been on this roster.
Not to mention, it doesn't matter who you put on this USA roster. They're going to blow everybody out of the water anyway. So you could put whoever you put as your third USA team out there, your third team USA team, they're going to run away with it anyway. So it's not like Caitlin Clark would go out there and suck. That wouldn't happen.
Yeah, it's a huge miss. And Polo Ralph Lauren's got to be very upset from an advertising standpoint. But let's hear what other people had to say. Some of the comments we received on our Facebook page. What did we hear?
This first one is from Mary Brandt on Facebook. She says, yes, because it'll bring in more money and give everyone else more attention and opportunities and money. Big opportunity to grow women's basketball wasted. With this momentum, it just brings the game/sport and every player up. Could've, would've, should've.
Yeah, and that's why in the back office, Vince Sapienza, a couple people are upset at me because I said, this is not just about winning. And sports is always about winning, but there are things at play here that are bigger and larger than basketball. And that's one of those things. And just to be able to capture the minds of so many young fans, I mean, not even just Americans. Young kids in other countries are going to be wanting to see her at play on the grandest stage of them all. So it's just a huge missed opportunity. What else do we have, though?
Dan Denschiff on Facebook. He says, like it or not, she's now pretty much one of the faces of the league. Do you want people to watch? Do you want to grow the league and the revenues? You need to do both. Reportedly, even with the new contracts and revenue streams, thanks to Clark, by the way, you're losing $50 million this year. She should or needs to be on the team.
Yeah, it's absurd. And the thing that's crazy is I keep coming back to this concept of having a rookie or having an amateur in the fold. And I think it's a good move to usually do that. The WNBA looks far different than it has ever in its existence this year because of the influx of this rookie class. Why not take that momentum and bring into the fold the person who's going to be the face of the league for years to come? It's great that she can get that experience and grow with all these veterans who've had that opportunity in the past. So listen, the Olympics comes around every 4 years. It's not like this is happening again next year. So this is a major, massive missed opportunity.
I never really understood when people are like, there's going to be more Olympic Games to come. But we might not care by then. 4 years down the line, we might not care like this again. So why are you not leveraging the biggest star your game's ever seen to potentially grow your game to an international audience, which would only drive up revenue and money? It blows my mind.
Yeah, it's a sad thing. All right, what else do we have? How many more?
We got two more. Anthony Mabry on Facebook. Quote, no, popular demand doesn't cut it, plain and simple. Fans are not coaches, scouts, or evaluators. Therefore, your opinion doesn't matter in assembling the national team.
Wow. All right. Okay, that's very harsh right there, but okay.
In your face.
Valid. All right, what's the last one?
Clark Colliapew via Facebook, quote, no, she is gifted and will dominate the game, but that will be in the future. I watch her play, and she is being schooled by players who have more experience than she has. I've seen her be stripped of the ball not once but several times. She's not ready to play against the best in the world. I disagree.
Yeah, I don't think she would start for the team.
No.
I just think there's a role for her on that roster. If you're constructing a team, any GM, how many players are on the team?
12.
12 people on that roster. She should have one of the 12, and that's just the bottom line, ladies and gentlemen.
And again, I go back to the argument of, do you think she's actually one of the top 12 American players right now? Maybe she's not, but at the very least, she's close, and her star power alone should get her over that hump and onto the roster. And I get it. It might not be fair to I don't know who would get the cut on that, like a Jackie Young, or one of the other guards, lesser-known guards. When you're fighting for a greater cause, and that greater cause is getting these women paid and, giving them wages that, is fair to the work that they put in, we shouldn't be caring about the feelings or fairness of other people. You get what I mean?
I 100%, but I also just think let's talk from a skills standpoint, right? I mean, okay, maybe she's not the most complete player in the WNBA right now, but you're telling me there's 11 people that are better than her at shooting the basketball in the WNBA? There's no chance.
There's not a better three-point shooter I think the women's game's ever seen.
Right. So, I mean, to me, you would construct a team, you would think about height, you'd think about facilitators, all these different skill sets that you're constructing a roster with. You'd have somebody on the team that maybe beats somebody else out just because of a height advantage, right? So what about shooting? That's not a major part of the basketball game with floor spacing nowadays. So you would want to have the best shooter on your roster. I think that's enough just to put her on that team. But listen, we can debate Caitlin Clark all day long. We got to move on. Coming up after a short break, we got more basketball to talk about. We're going to be talking about the Celtics capturing that 18th championship. We got former NBA veteran CJ Watson. He joins us in studio after the break. All right, welcome back to Sound Off Sports. I am joined now by the newest member of the Southern Nevada Sports Hall of Fame, former NBA player, great local guy, went to Bishop Gorman. He's also Ayanna Watson's dad. We got to mention that now. As Gatorade Player of the Year for volleyball at Gorman. It's the great CJ Watson. CJ, great to be with you. Tell me, as a Bishop Gorman guy, a Vegas guy, to now be in the Southern Nevada Sports Hall of Fame, what did that mean to you?
Oh, man, it means a lot. It was just such a great honor, a great night. Had all my family and friends there, so it was definitely an honor. Just growing up, being born and raised here in Vegas, going to Gorman, having success there, and then going off to college and professionally. But getting that call that day when he said I was going to be in the Southern Nevada Hall of Fame, it was pretty big. I was actually folding clothes. I had to stop what I was doing to actually put it all together, what it meant.
And what's the perspective? What's the teaching moment you have for young athletes, other parents, as you're taking in this as a father, as a former NBA player with a future stud on your hands with your daughter? Tell me, what does it all mean? What's the take-home message?
Just all the hard work you put in, the sleepless nights you get, all the stress you have, I guess, from winning games, from losing games, from injuries, and then just giving back to the next generation, just telling them, just keep working hard, don't give up, and I think that's just the biggest message for me.
And you demonstrated that throughout your entire career, throughout college. You go undrafted. You're playing with the Spurs a little bit in the summer league, but you got to go overseas and play in Italy. And then when you finally start making your mark, you're doing it in the D League before it was the G League. And then finally you get this career where you're with Golden State, the Bulls, the Nets, the Pacers, the Magic. So you had a lot of years on the NBA hardwood. Let's reflect a little bit on the NBA Finals that just passed. They just raised their 18th championship banner, the Celtics. A lot of people were anticipating that. It was an easy road for them from the Eastern Conference standpoint to get to the finals. Were you surprised with the result? What's your big takeaway from that series?
Just how much Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum have grown. I mean, obviously over the years, people have paired them and told them they need to break up, told them they can't win together. So I think just, perseverance, the same thing with my career, perseverance. They kept fighting, they kept getting better. They didn't really listen to the naysayers or what people would say. And then adding a guy like Drew Holiday, who's probably the missing piece for me, defensively and offensively. So they were just the best team the whole year, so there was nothing really stopping them.
Right, and from an X's and O's standpoint, because you can really teach us this, I mean, defensively they were outstanding. I mean, they held in every 5-game series, in the 4 wins, they held the Mavs to under 100 points in each game. What were they doing defensively? Can you teach us for a second and explain to us what was going on? Because, I mean, with the firepower of Kyrie and Luka, you would think they'd easily get over 100 points. So what were they doing defensively that was so remarkable?
When you look at their team, you just look at their 4 guards, Derek White, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Drew Holiday. They all can switch. So when you got a guy like Luka and Kyrie, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, they're big. So, they're 6'6", 6'9", whatever. And Kyrie has not faced that before, but he doesn't face that on a daily basis in a 7-game series. And just their height and their wingspan, stuff like that, that probably bothered him a lot. That's why he wasn't so effective.
Okay, very interesting stuff. Now, do we think this is a dynasty? Because that's what a lot of people are talking now. I mean, it's with the new CBA, collective bargaining agreement that the NBA has, they're trying to really make it impossible for teams to have super teams like we used to have 4, 5, 6 years ago. So the super team thing is not going to be happening with a lot of other franchises, but to have Tatum, Brown, even Drew, and now KP and Porzingis in the fold for the next few years.
Yeah.
Is this a super team, and is this going to be the next dynasty in the NBA?
I think so. They can keep them all together, you know. I think the money has to match up. That's just the biggest thing. Are they going to go in the luxury tax, all those type of things? But I definitely think, you know, they have the criteria and the team to do that and to go on another 2 to 3 year run.
Okay, last question for you on this. I'm just curious, you know, they're 26 and 27, Tatum and Brown, respectively. Joe Mazzulla, interesting guy. Our producer is a West Virginia guy, so is Mazzulla. He's 35 years old.
Yeah.
He inherited a team that was, you know, Ime Udoka's, who did great stuff now after being shipped out, and now he's with the Houston Rockets. But Mazzulla, from a basketball standpoint, Derek White called him a basketball genius. As you're watching the series, is Mazzulla really, was he doing things from a coaching standpoint that you feel is basketball genius level?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I definitely think he had that pedigree. He came from Brad Stevens. He learned under him. I think he learned a lot last year. A lot of people gave him criticism for not calling timeouts in certain points. I think this year he called quick timeouts when the other team went on a run. So I think he learned from that process. And I think if you got to be a head coach, you got to be dialed in. You got to be dedicated to the craft and to the sport. And I definitely think he is.
All right. Well, the closest you were to an NBA final situation.
Don't remind me.
What was it? Tell me.
We lost to LeBron in the Eastern Conference Finals when I played for the Bulls and the Pacers.
Wow.
So.
What takes you back to what do you think about now, having the perspective from those?
Just how close we got. You know, we were right there. I feel like if we would have got to the championship either year, we would have won for sure.
Wow. Look at that. All right.
Heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking stuff. It's tough to reflect, but we're happy you're here to do it with us. The great C.J. Watson, congratulations, newest member of the Southern Nevada Sports Hall of Fame. Guys, we'll be right back on Sound Off Sports after a short break. All right, welcome back to SOS. All right, so we got to talk about the Boston Celtics. They just won the NBA Finals. It's now their 18th championship in franchise history. We asked everybody at home whether this is the beginning of a brand new dynasty in Boston with Tatum and Brown in the fold. James, what are people saying at home?
This first one from Glenda Cananan via Facebook. Quote, Tatum has been in the league for 7 years, just won a chip. I don't think Celtics would have gone this far if Eastern Conference teams they were against in the playoffs were healthy. Just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they were the best team all season long. They went 16-3 in the playoffs. It's a strong team. Defensively, this is the crazy thing. In that 5-game NBA Finals series, in the 4 wins, they held the Mavs to under 100 points in each of those 4 wins. That's with Luka and Kyrie Irving, 2 of the best scorers in NBA history. So this team is really well equipped from an offensive and defensive standpoint. And to have, you know, I mean, you heard it from C.J. Watson himself, to have those guards that can defend like that with Drew Holiday, Derek White, and just what Tatum and Brown bring from a standpoint of both ends on the floor, it's going to be hard for a lot of teams to compete with them in the future. So I think this is, we got to hold our horses on the dynasty talk, but they're very well equipped, especially since the Eastern Conference is so weak, and that's what that caller really got right. What else do we have to hear from people?
This is Ken Nelson on Facebook. Quote, their first title in 16 years. Let's pump the brakes a little bit on dynasties.
Yeah, I mean, here's the other big thing. You got to pump the brakes also because literally we've had 6 different champions in the past 6 seasons in the NBA. It's very hard to repeat, but this could be the makings of what we saw with the Spurs and Miami and Golden State and Lakers. I mean, when you have a tandem like that, especially with the new collective bargaining agreement, that's really trying to make it extremely difficult for franchises to have that super team that we've become accustomed to the past 5-6 years. That's not going to be happening so much anymore. So now they got Drew Holiday, Tatum, Brown, and Porzingis in the fold for the next few years. It's going to be hard for a lot of teams to compete with them. What's your take on all this, James?
The Celtics are very deep, in Tatum and company. They're very good, but there's so much talent in the NBA. Think about the Eastern Conference this year. If the Knicks were fully healthy, that, you know,
right.
What do they look like? And Giannis, he was out for much of that Indiana series. Yeah. So that's just the Eastern Conference, and that's not talking about, you know, Joker, Luka, and Anthony Edwards out west. So I just think there is so much talent in the NBA, and, you know, the Celtics, I don't think they have that top-end talent to dominate for years and years to come. Yeah. They're going to be in the conversation, no question about it, but I just think it's so hard
Yeah.
to do that twice.
It's super hard. And I think matchup-wise, the Mavs was a good matchup for the Celtics. You know, if the Nuggets were in the finals, if even the Timberwolves, I think it could have been a different story, you know? So, I mean, it's interesting to see how, from a matchup standpoint, they really succeeded. But you got to give them credit. I mean, defensively, offensively, all year long, this team has really been solid. And I'm happy for, for Brown. I'm a big fan of his. I think the impact of Drew Holiday can't be, forgotten. But this team, it's going to be special. What Brad Stevens has done from the top down with this roster plus Missoula, Boston Celtics fans, man, they have a lot of championships in that city, and they got to be super grateful for that. Guys, coming up after a short break, we got to honor one of the greatest heroes in Major League Baseball history. We're going to be talking about the late, great Willie Mays. Stick around. All right, well, it's time to honor the late, great Willie Mays. The Say Hey Kid just passed away, unfortunately, as the MLB is getting ready for this slate of Negro League games. But we have to honor this great man. And I don't want to talk all about the 24 All-Star games and the MVPs and the 12 Gold Gloves. Let's talk about some of the other things that are lesser known. First of all, he started his career at 17 playing in the Negro League for the Birmingham Black Barons, led them to the Negro League World Series. At 20 years old, he became the 10th black player in Major League history, and he actually went hitless in his first 3 games, but his first Major League hit was a home run off of the Hall of Famer, Warren Spahn. So that's interesting stuff. The one other thing I do want to mention, he actually was a veteran. He played in 34 games in 1952, but was actually drafted into the Army for the Korean War, and he missed the rest of the season due to military service. So he was a great man, a veteran, and did so much for the sport of baseball. He's going to be sorely missed, and we got to honor the late, great Willie Mays. Thank you for everything you did for our country and for the sport of baseball. We'll see you next time on Sound Off Sports.